Well, recently we have been journeying with Moses and the Israelites. We were there with Moses when he encountered God in the burning bush. We heard Moses questioning God's judgment in calling Moses to lead the people in the first place. We heard Moses question God's power in presuming that God had enough oomph to go up against Pharaoh. And we heard Moses question the willingness of the Israelites to make the journey. But God promised that God would be with Moses and God would be with the people and that God would bring them out. We were with Moses and Aaron when the Israelites blamed them for Pharaoh's cruel oppression. And we were there when Pharaoh asked, "Who is this God that I should listen to him?" We were there when Pharaoh learned exactly how powerful God was. We were there when God made a way where there was no way, and the Israelites crossed the Red Sea on dry ground. And we were there when the horse and rider were thrown into the sea. We found ourselves on the other side with dry feet, with people who are scared and tired and hungry and thirsty. And the worst part is that there's a lot of tension because they're in crisis, because this kind of stuff keeps happening. And so they complain and they bicker and they fight a lot. And Moses was tired too. After all, Moses started out this journey at 80 years old. Maybe you can imagine being 80 years old and starting out on an epic journey. It sounds tiring. It sounds pretty impossible. I have plans for when I'm 80. I will be sitting poolside with a glass of iced tea. But Moses was 80 years old, and he was leading God's people to the promised land. And they were cranky. And God meets the people in their crankiness. God protects them from the Egyptian. God feeds them. God gives them cool, sweet, clear water to drink. God meets us where we are, broken and depressed and downtrodden, oppressed, grieving. God calls us to a fuller life. God walks with us on our journey. And at the end, good triumphs over evil. But that is really hard for us to remember when we're in the wilderness. And that is when we ask the same question that the Israelites asked Moses: is God here or not? And they asked this question not because they were whiny or ungrateful. They asked this question because they were honest and they actually could not feel the presence of God with them. We are a people on a journey. We are scared and tired, uncomfortable, grieving. We are spiritually hungry and thirsty. And God meets us there in the wilderness. God asks us if we will be God's people, and we accept. God asks us to be God's people, even though Moses went up to get the 10 Commandments on the mountain, and while he was gone, the people messed up big time. God wants us to be God's people, even though they made a golden calf to worship. And Moses, in an attempt to keep the entire nation of Israel from being obliterated, runs down the mountain, smashes the tablets, and gives the people of God what for? God gives the people the 10 Commandments again, and instructions to build the tabernacle, a meeting tent where they could worship. God wanted the people of Israel to be God's people, even though there were shenanigans. And because of the shenanigans, God kept the people of Israel wandering all around the wilderness for 40 years until their mindset changed and their attitude was adjusted. Seriously, Google Maps says it would take a week to walk this journey. A week. 6 days, actually, but I put in a little extra for tourism or something. Google Maps says it will take 6 days to walk this journey, unless there are shenanigans. A bigger roadblock than potholes, a bigger roadblock than construction, shenanigans. Even Moses didn't make the complete journey. Moses got to see the promised land. And when he did, he gathered together the people of Israel on the bank of the Jordan right across from the promised land. And he stood there, I imagine, with the promised land behind him, and he told the people the stories of the time of wilderness wandering. He reminded them that they were God's people. He reminded them what that meant, that they had a covenant to uphold with God. He sang a song of praise to God. He blessed the people. And he announced that Joshua would be his successor. Moses climbed Mount Nebo, and he looked out over the promised land. And then he took his last breath. Imagine being Joshua. You are the new leader of a group of people who don't remember doing things any other way, who don't remember anything but the wilderness. And your job is to take these people into a new way of doing things. And even though the people certainly had issues with Moses, even though they more often than not told Moses that he was doing things the wrong way, once Moses is gone, all of a sudden, everybody thought Moses was awesome. Moses was, after all, Moses. I wouldn't want to follow Moses. He did some pretty awesome stuff. Maybe you've been an educator or a babysitter or a child care provider, and you've had a kid say, I don't need to listen to you. You're not so-and-so. Or you've started up in a new job, and your clients won't give you a chance because they really liked your predecessor, so-and-so. Hearing about how good old so-and-so was gets really old really quick. So imagine being Joshua. You're just the guy that ran a few military operations. You're just that really awesome, honest spy. You did get to go up to Mount Sinai with Moses, and you were the custodian of the tabernacle tent. But still, you don't measure up to Moses. Imagine the people. How can he lead us? He's only 45. Moses was 120. It must have been pretty rough to be Joshua. And there's something in this story that I identify with, and I can't quite put my finger on it. God had called Joshua to take on the daunting task of stepping into the giant shoes of a great leader. God called Joshua to create a reservoir of trust with the people, and that is no small feat. And then you find out that Moses is gone. Gone. It's just you now. It's the big time. And God tells you, take the people and cross the Jordan River. The land that I'm giving you is just on the other side. Every square inch of the land that you set your foot on, I will give you, just as I promised to Moses. It is all yours. And in the same way that I was with Moses, I will be with you. I won't give up on you. I won't leave you. Be strong and courageous. Joshua, you are going to lead my people to the promised land. Be strong, be courageous. Give it everything you have. Give it your blood, sweat, and tears. Make sure that you do what Moses told the people would be done. That is what you are supposed to do. Do not lose focus. Every day, think about what Moses has told you will come to be. Don't get off track, and don't write your own playbook. Then you'll get where you're going. Then you will succeed. Be strong and courageous. You have no reason to be discouraged because God is with you all along your journey. So, Joshua tried. Joshua gave orders to the leader of the people saying, "Tell your people to pack up. Decide what you're bringing. In 3 days, you will cross the Jordan and you will receive the land that God has promised to you." And the Reubenites and the Gadites and Manasseh were livestock dependent and wanted to stay on this side of the Jordan because the land was good for livestock. I always wondered why they didn't cross along behind, and I had to do some studying. So they decided to stay behind, and Joshua told them that God would give them this land, but for now, their soldiers had to cross the Jordan until the Israelites had taken possession of all of the promised land, and then they could come back over the river and have their land that they had been promised. And all the people answered Joshua, "We will do what you have told us to do. We will go where you send us. Just like we obeyed Moses, we will obey you." I'm sure that Joshua might have raised his eyebrow at that point for Moses because there were some opportunities, some occasions when the Israelites did not obey Moses. But they're in the right mindset. We'll obey you. We will obey you, Joshua. But we just pray that God is with you like God was with Moses. Be strong and courageous. I don't think that it's hard for any of us to imagine how hard it must have been for Joshua to step into what seemed to be an impossible situation and be told, "You can do this. Be strong and courageous." Be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous.